Our name is Ghosts Want You Dead. Sometimes one can become consumed with wondering what might have been if perhaps things had worked out differently. One must resist the temptation to fixate on these realities that never were, lest one become trapped in the realm of fantasy or something. Happy New Year, Rebecca.
Happy New Year, Matthew.
In the timeline of the show's original broadcast dates, we have at last entered 1967. So the episodes we'll discuss this week aired Monday, January 2nd through Friday, January 6th, 1967.
Well,
So just go ahead.
that's kind of lucky because it is also technically the solar new year. Like if you were being pagany, like the beginning of the year is actually the spring equinox and all that jazz.
But that was a week ago.
Sure, but close.
Okay.
Well,
Well,
happy second week of New Year
well,
in 1967.
as I was saying, to set the scene, the US was escalating its participation in the Vietnam War. Ronald Reagan was inaugurated as the 33rd governor of California, elect. Jack Ruby of Killing Lee Harvey Oswald fame. Lee Harvey Oswald, who was alleged to have killed JFK.
Mhm.
Anyway, Jack Ruby died this week. Milton Berle's failed attempt at a television comeback called The Milton Berle Show aired its final episode. The Doors released their first album. The Disney film Follow Me, Boys, which, after a brief Wikipedia-ing, seems to be about the origin of the Boy Scouts or something, but I'd never heard of it,
Wow.
was number one in the box office this week. The Monkees' I'm a Believer topped the Billboard
Aw.
chart.
That makes me think of your mom. She loved the monkeys.
My mother was great, but had some famously bad
Well, we
taste
both liked some
occasionally.
old man music, like, we bonded over, like, a Neil Diamond and stuff like
Yeah.
that. She had some good taste.
And lastly, The Secret of Santa Vittoria by Robert Crichton was the New York Times number one bestseller in fiction. Speaking of fiction, we are recording our first tome troop. That's our pretentious way of saying book club bonus episode for Patreon on Monday. We are starting with the first in the air quotes Marilyn Ross series of Dark Shadows novels, the air quotes because that is a pseudonym for a dude. But the first book is aptly titled Dark Shadows. I have read the book, but Rebecca hasn't, and it's driving me crazy because I want to talk about it so bad.
I am doing what I always do, which is everything at the last possible second, and I tried to read the book, but then I was falling asleep, so I got the audiobook, and I have to make a drive tomorrow, so I am going to consume it all tomorrow, and then we're gonna talk about it Monday, and I am excited. I do like a book. I don't know if you can relate to this, Matthew, but at least for me, being an old, tired single mom lady for the last several years now, as I've gotten older, I find it very difficult to read books for leisure because I just fall asleep. Like I pick it up and it's an immediate sedative because I'm comfy and cozy. And I love reading. I used to just read for pleasure all of the time, but it's a bummer. Like, I wish I had, you know, mental space and time to relax and read a book and really relax and not just fall asleep.
I tend to have the opposite problem when reading. I generally don't read, this is physical books. I don't generally like to read before bed because I will become too engrossed and stay up too late. And I read pretty quickly, but have made the mistake of starting a long book right before bed and then staying up half the night reading it.
That is how I used to be, and I would have that same response, but now I pick up a book, I immediately get sleepy, and I hate it.
But
It's a bummer.
as a caveat, it's pretty rare that I read actual physical books anymore. I listen to a lot of audiobooks for the same reason I listen to a lot of podcasts because I can do that while also doing something else. And I do occasionally fall asleep to audiobooks, but I don't like to do that because then it's hard to find my place the next day.
I do like people telling me stories, but that does still happen to me some too.
Interestingly enough, this book that we're reading for book club, I mean, Tome Troop, is one that we purchased a physical copy of, but then neither of us are reading the physical copy.
It's true.
I read a digital version because Becca had the paper copy at her house because my shitty little apartment is not good for getting mail, and whenever I have to get a package, I order it to Rebecca's house. She had it all week, so I couldn't read it, and I got impatient and read the digital one, and she doesn't have the time to read the physical book, so she's listening to the audiobook,
Yep.
so we bought this book that we aren't reading.
Well, if it's good, I'll read it again maybe.
I
Enjoy
might
it.
read
Yeah,
it again because
it is good.
I enjoyed it.
I bet I will.
And I wanted to read it in the bathtub because that is the best place to read a paper book.
I
The
agree.
element of danger makes it more
Yeah,
fun.
it's edgy. Uh, I feel like we have a similar taste in reading to a certain extent, but then I venture into things that you're not into. I don't know if you read anything that I wouldn't like.
I read shitty horror fiction often, and I like biographies. I do read the occasional literary novel, but generally I stick more to genre stuff.
I like literary novels and I like old sci-fi, but I've read all the old sci-fi. I am terrible about starting new things that I don't know about with like books or TV. I don't know if it's some manner of my neurodivergence. I don't know which or what, but I struggle with getting started with things, consuming anything in a timely manner, like new stuff. I don't know why I'm resistant to it. Someone will recommend something or I'll read about something, and this is books or movies or TV shows. You and another friend of mine, have, harangued me about some of the same shows for years, like, "You should watch it," and it takes me forever, and sometimes I finally do, and actually, I started last week, but I finished this week. That happened with a television show that it's now old news. Like, I feel like I'm, like, super excited and in love with The Interview with the Vampire Netflix television show
It's
as
not a Netflix television
it
show, it is
is.
an AMC
It
production.
is.
They have just sold broadcast rights to Netflix, but
You
it's
are correct.
AMC,
I love
and
AMC.
I am an evangelist for AMC Plus because it's great. Because when you get AMC Plus, you also get Shudder and Sundance and IFC, and, like, you get a lot of bang for your buck out of AMC Plus. I highly recommend it. But yeah, that is an AMC
Maybe I'll
production.
cancel one of my things and get the AMC.
Oh,
Well,
there
I
is
do
another
love that.
show you should watch because you loved that. The AMC, is home of the Walking Dead franchise, and they had like 57 Walking Dead shows that were cash cows. They are kind of trying to do the same thing with Anne Rice properties. So there's the Interview with the Vampire show. There is also The Mayfair Witches show,
Oh,
which we tried to watch and only made it through half of the first episode because the lead is Alexandra Daddario, who is a charisma vacuum, and I don't know how she keeps getting jobs.
I don't know who that is. I'm
But
gonna look it
you
up.
do. She was the brown-haired lady from the first season of The White Lotus.
I honestly could not place her.
Well, I find her utterly charmless, and for that reason, I could not get through the first episode of the Witching Hour show, but I believe it also has 2 seasons. I might take another stab at it. I probably
Oh,
should.
yeah, I recognize her. I think she's very, very pretty and has spooky, scary eyes like Joan Bennett, but
Yes, she's
yeah,
pretty to look at, but she's bad at acting.
I just really haven't watched enough with her.
Well, anyway, there's also a 3rd show that had a shortened first season, and the jury is still out as to whether it will be picked up for a 2nd season, which this is an original story based on Anne Rice mythos called Talamasca, which you know about them being the little spooky cops,
Yeah.
basically, and I enjoyed that, but again, remains unclear if they're going to pick it up for a 2nd season. I would hope they would, because they picked up The Witching Hour, and that was unwatchable,
Yeah.
so
Well, the Interview with the Vampire certainly wasn't. I was just in love with it. It was so much more like the books and then better than the books a little bit. And I am deeply in love with and simultaneously want to be Sam Reid as Lestat. His read on that was perfect, and I'm just
well,
obsessed.
he has another program that you might want to watch on AMC Plus.
I did start
Basic
looking of like what else
basically
has this wonderful man
get
done.
AMC Plus and give me your password because we've paused our subscription until Halloween season because that's usually what we do. But we might get it back when Interview with the Vampire comes back. But anyway, he has another show on AMC Plus called The Newsreader, and it's him and the lady who was the lead of Fringe. I don't know if you watched that. But anyway, yes, get AMC Plus and watch The Newsreader.
Well, I probably might. I need to cancel
Also, if you get
things too.
AMC Plus, you can follow through on actually watching Mad Men.
I know you love that movie show. It's a movie
I
show.
do love that movie show against my better judgment.
I know.
Shall we talk about Dark Shadows?
Yes. Shall we?
Episode 136, Victoria Winters reminds us that finally, the shit that is happening isn't happening to her. Too bad for Roger and them, though. Roger scowls and paces the drawing room. He is startled by a loud rapping at the door. It is not one, but 2 Garners, daddy and baby,
Yes.
come down together. He has summoned them to facilitate his divorce from Laura, but didn't want to go into details on the phone.
Roger's like, "Why did you bring baby boy Garner?" And Daddy Garner is like, "Well, he's sweet on Vicky, but also he's come to help."
Because, between the 2 of them,
Well, that we find that out later.
little boy is the one who knows about divorce
Yeah.
law. So, Roger is mad about it, and he paces before teasing the Garners by saying he's in the worst trouble of his whole life.
Very
Opening
dramatic.
credits. He wants to know how quickly they can make the divorce happen, and Frank tries to answer, but Roger cuts him off and is real pissy, and this is when he asks why Frank is there. But Roger goes on annoyed to tell them that he doesn't care about the grounds for the divorce just as long as it happens, and that Laura doesn't want any money, just custody of David. And
Daddy Garner says that Liz probably won't have that or will have
Well,
something to say about that.
Roger says
Well,
that Liz might have some objections, but that shouldn't have any bearing on things.
and Daddy Garner kind of pulls rank and is like, "Well, I work for your sister, not you, right?" Like he's pretty much like, "I won't do anything, I won't go against her wishes." And Roger changes the subjects. Roger changes the subject and asks Baby Boy Garner if he wants to see Vicky.
Don't you want to go play with Vicky in the other room while the
Yeah,
grown-ups talk?
pretty
Yeah.
much. He's treating him pretty infantile. But he is like, "Yeah, I want to see Vicky."
I can
And
understand the impulse though. Roger being about 40 and having known this boy since he was a child.
sure, like, why are you here, kid?
You know how people remain the same age they were at the time that you met them, so
It's true.
I can sympathize with him thinking of this grown man lawyer as a little boy.
Well, Baby boy Garner is happy to see Vicky. Roger says he'll call her, and it was funny to me because they all went out into the hall in a little line, and then Roger just yells up the stairs, "Vicky, Vicky!" And she pops up and is like, "Yes." And she comes down, and Matt and I at that point were trying to determine if Baby Boy Garner is a different boy, Baby Garner. Did you look it up?
I did look it up and it's not.
Oh,
We
okay.
just haven't seen him in a
Yeah,
few
we just
weeks
haven't
and
seen Frank in a bit.
forgot his face.
Well, he says hello, and she descends the stairs, and
She comes down in this bonkers outfit, and I can't tell if she's in pajamas or dressed up to go to the Ren Fair.
yeah,
I
she
guess
is.
it's a nightgown
I
because in the conversation with Daddy Garner, Roger says something. Oh no, Daddy Garner asks where Liz is, and Roger says he waited until she was asleep
Yeah,
so that she wouldn't hear this conversation.
this is
So
a weird late
I guess
clandestine
it's
meeting.
nighttime, so that must just be a hideous nightgown.
I think from what I could tell watching it, like, it's like a velvety robe that she has put over a white nightgown, which then makes it look as though she's ready to go to the Ren Fair and serve beers and
Well, regardless of what she's wearing, she and Frank are happy to see one another, and they go off to the kitchen for their play date to have coffee. Roger returns to Daddy Garner, who was waiting in the drawing room, and Daddy is mad that Roger so obviously tried to get rid of Frank. But Roger tells him all about Burke trying to revisit the manslaughtering, but now it's more dangerous because Laura is in town and might be swayed by Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin, Burke Devlin to change her testimony. Uh, and Daddy is on board to help Roger with any of that.
he wants to give Laura what she wants, which is David, and to get her out of there. Garner says he's going to let Frank handle that and do it swiftly, and Roger's like, "Why?" And then they cut to baby boy Garner telling Vicky that, they are opening a branch in Collinsport, and he is moving there. He asks if she will be staying in Collinsport, because he would like to see her, and Vicky is like, "Well, yes, of course," and he's like, "Well, you won't have a job," and she's like, "Huh?"
He
And
helps her to understand that what with Laura being back, she'll be taking David, so then if there are no children, Collinwood won't need a governess anymore, and she'll be out of a job, and none of that had occurred to her yet.
yeah, she seemed shocked and then, like, crestfallen, like,
Well,
"Oh, hey, I don't know."
she thought that Mother was just visiting and didn't know about the custody arrangement, so she is upset and goes to stand in the corner about it
With
by
the
the plant.
plants.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, I said contemplate by the plants because yeah, they have big, lush ferns or whatever. When they're not ferns, they're like palm trees.
But
I like to talk about the plants in shows.
Frank follows her, and Vicky is conflicted. She says she wants to keep her job, but also Roger is a really shitty father, and if
Yeah.
David has a chance to have a parent that likes him even just a little bit, she wants him to have it.
Yeah, she wouldn't wish being orphaned on anyone, even evil little David of the Corn. She is glad that his mother is there.
Over at the Evanses, Sam is covering up his spooky, mysterious painting again because he hears Maggie's car pulling up to announce that she's coming home. She's been on a date with Joe, which is nice.
Yeah, that's good for them.
She tries again to look at the mysterious, spooky painting, and of course, he yells at her about it, and
Jesus
they do
Christ.
their usual song and dance where she asks a million questions and he refuses to answer, and I'm
Pours
bored
another
with it.
drink, and then another, and then another.
Back at Collinwood, Daddy Garner is accusing Roger of hiding something in relation to the manslaughtering. He points out that Roger being so worried about Laura being back makes him look guilty, which it does.
Yeah, he's like, if you're supposedly so innocent of the manslaughtering, then you have nothing to fear. And he clearly knows and suspects that Roger is, and I think he's always suspected that Roger did the manslaughtering. But
Well, Roger tries to weasel his way out of it, but Daddy doesn't believe him. He just tries to ask who Laura's lawyer is, but his execution of the question is rather Porky Pig. He stammers and says the wrong words several times.
yeah, he says some iteration of like something about who's responsible or has representation, but he was all like responsible representation or blah, 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 blah.
Roger doesn't think that she even has a lawyer, so Daddy is getting ready to leave, and he calls for Baby Garner, who enters, and Daddy tells him that he's going to represent Roger in the divorce, so he needs to go tomorrow to talk to Laura and find out who her lawyer is. But he Porky Pigs it again and doesn't really get
Yeah,
the question out clearly. Vicky and Frank say good night, and
Frank.
she go ahead.
I was gonna say Frank's kind of mooning at her a little bit before they leave. And then she confronts Roger in the drawing room after the Garner fellas leave,
Yeah, he's
and
staring dramatically out the
all
window, and
pensive and
she comes in to ask about her pending unemployment, and amusingly, it hadn't occurred to Roger either, which obviously he's not considering how this might affect anyone else, but he acknowledges it and is just like, "Oh shit, sorry, didn't even think about you at all."
yeah.
And Vicky is trying to gauge how quickly she'll need to pack her bags and look for another job, but Roger reassures her that Laura's going to live there for a while so that she and David can get to know each other, so she's not going to be out on her ass right away.
Yeah.
Vicky, perhaps, I don't know if you read it this way, but perhaps tries to manipulate the situation and tells Roger in great detail about just how fucking crazy his little son is, and like, "Well, let me tell you all about his scary dreams and how he was repeating, 'Fire, fire, fire,' and we cut to Sam saying, 'Fire, fire, I keep seeing fire.'"
He's being all hypnotized by the hypnotizing fire, and he's pacing and anxious, and Maggie presses, Sam avoids, she goes to bed, and he uncovers the painting and stares at it. He covers it back up and paces before pouring in another drink and grabbing his coat and leaving. Maggie comes out calling him because she heard the door, and she's in a cute nightgown, just like a, like, comfy cotton one, and he's already left, so she goes to sneak a look at the painting, but kind of mulls it for a while, like, "Maybe I'm gonna, maybe I'm not," and she finally uncovers it, and she looks shocked, and then there is a superimposed burning fire over her.
And the music gets real
Yeah,
spooky.
it is, it's spooky. Fire.
And from that fire, we crossfade over to the roaring fire in the fireplace in the drawing room at Collinwood. Roger is trying to con Vicky into talking David into not being scared of his mother. He tells Vicky that he'll talk to Liz and they'll make sure to find her some other role so she doesn't have to be fired when
Yeah,
David leaves. Maybe she can go be a secretary at fish business or something.
since she's now proving potentially useful in talking to David about that, which is that what you mean by you think maybe she manipulated him into that? Because I
No,
didn't see that.
I think she was trying to manipulate him into, like, he's terrified of his mother and doesn't want to go live with her,
To
and
let me keep my
yeah.
job. Okay. Well, because I think in this instance, Roger is manipulating her and like, oh, we'll totally find a place for you. And I mean, he blows hot and cold. Who knows that he even would? But he's like, we'll, put you in with Miss Johnson and figure out something. And you just need to convince him that his mother isn't scary, scary.
Oh, I wanna talk about the book so bad.
Well, we will.
It keeps reminding me of things from the book that I can't tell you.
Well, tomorrow, my friend. Well, no, not tomorrow, my friend, because I will listen to it, but then we can't talk about it till Monday, so we'll have a whole day, but we can do it. Back at the Evanses', Sam comes back and Maggie's waiting up for him, and she says she looked at the painting and asks why he would paint something like that. That's not motel art.
She ambushes him, though.
Yeah, she
She's just
does.
sitting hiding in the dark, and then when he turns on the light, she's like, "Hello."
Father.
She confesses to looking at the painting, and she's all upset about how spooky it is, so she grills him about it, but he doesn't have answers. They both express that they are a scared.
And
End credits.
episode
Episode
137.
137.
We did it.
Victoria
Victoria Winters
Winters
tells
reminds
us that
us that
there's a
Mother
present.
is visiting and creeping people out. Sam is drinking about it at the Blue Whale. He is fixating on the flames of patrons lighting their cigarettes when Sheriff George stops by to say, "Hey," and asks Sam if he's seen Roger. George also teases him for being the town drunk. Sam hasn't seen Roger, though, so George leaves, and Sam goes immediately to the phone to call Roger. They exchange unpleasantries and are doing their usual, "I hate you, well, I hate you too, but still we are allies," routine that they do, and Sam tells Roger that the sheriff is looking for him. He begs to see Roger, presumably to show him the creepy painting. Opening credits. Roger wants details, but Sam won't give any and just tells Roger he has to show him something. Carolyn comes down and Roger hurriedly ends the call, pretending that it's a business matter. Carolyn is trying to get the dirt on whatever is going on with Laura and him and Laura and Burke and Laura by teasing him. This shot is fun because Carolyn is looking in the mirror, so we can see her from behind and in reflection, but we can only see Roger in reflection, what with mirrors symbolizing duality and deception and whatnot. Carolyn knows that Roger isn't being forthright about all this mess. And
She toys and says she wishes that Roger and Laura would get back together and be a happy couple so that she can have Burke to herself. And
yeah, she brings up Burke, and Roger admits that Burke is hot.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty good.
I can't remember the exact wording, but
Well, I mean, it was
oh, he
not that
says
he is
some
hot so much as that she calls him a whore,
well,
basically. He's like, he's ready for any lady.
he says something to the effect of, I guess Carolyn says she thinks it's weird how Burke was Roger's competition for Laura's affections, and Roger says, "Well, Burke is everyone's competition for every woman's affections."
Yeah.
Like, he's so hot, all the girls want
All the
him.
girls want him.
After he admits that Burke is hot, he warns Carolyn off of him again, and she gets pissy about it, but then calms down because she's fishing to try and find out if Burke is still sweet on Laura, and she admits to being concerned about Laura being her competition for Burke's affection. In the foyer, the phone rings several times, but no one comes down to answer.
At the Blue Whale, we see a giggly couple dancing and Sam sitting around being a huge bummer.
And it was confusing. They're getting a little artsy on this episode with the mirror
I did
shot
notice
and
that, yeah.
then this because they linger on this giggly couple for far too long. Like we approach them at the bar and then we see them walking through the bar to the point where Becca had to ask me, like, who are these people? Are we supposed to know them?
Yeah.
And no, they're just setting the scene.
Bert comes in and says hi to Sam, and he sits down, and Burke says he looks like the loneliest man in town, but I wrote the loveliest man in town and laughed and was like, "No, never would he be." Um,
Oh, the loveliest man in town is Joe.
that's true. That's true. I'll give Joe that.
For now.
Yes. Burke talks about how they've known each other for a long time and that he likes him because he has a conscience. And that's why he's a mess, because he knows what he's doing is not right and that it's weighing on him. And he's like, "What do you mean, drinking?" And he's like, "No, the manslaughtering business." And
But Burke is making the mistake of thinking that somewhere within Sam is a decent guy, and while that may have been true once, it is not any
and
longer.
he's essentially warning him, like, "Hey, buddy, like, I'm about to blow this open whether you agree with it or not. So you need to come to the right side of history and admit, because I'm gonna have Laura spill all the beans and testify." And
You'll get less jail time if you come over and
yeah,
also do that and
and
turn state's witness instead of getting caught as a liar.
sure, and I think I do understand why, Burke really did value this man or care about him, and he realizes that he did this thing and then now he is different. And it is hard to envision Sam as anything but awful. But, I mean, Burke, supposedly, if he was this good man that we can't really see anymore, like, it does speak to that of, like, Bert clearly valued him enough because he doesn't seem to split hairs on people that suck. So the fact that he does care does somehow show that Sam was a nice guy, or at least appeared to be. I honestly wonder if it's just the actor for me, because he just upsets me. Like, and I mean, not the actor, but the way that actor portrays that Sam makes me really anxious. And
I don't know,
like the old Sam, but you
I didn't like old Sam either,
I
so
felt
I
like
think
old
it's
Sam had a quality about him that could show that at one point in time he wasn't just horrendous. But I just can't, the way that that actor portrays Sam.
Roger enters and Burke sneaks up behind him asking for a chat. Burke invites him to sit and gives the impression that he wants to talk privately, but they join Sam at his table instead, and Burke teases them for pretending like they don't know each other every time they see one another. He teases further by pretending that he thinks Roger and Laura are getting back together and he congratulates him on their reconciliation. But then Burke becomes vaguely threatening, but Roger isn't particularly interested. He tells Burke that he needs to stay away from Laura because he might drive her crazy again. Burke doesn't buy this, and they yell a bunch at each other until Roger becomes so frustrated that he walks away, but Burke follows him and whispers threateningly in his ear.
Yeah, Roger gets up and stands against the wall so that Bert can come up and speak to him in a profile, uh, close shot, and they flirt fight some more. And
Burke asks Roger If you guys are getting back together, then how come she's just down the hall from me at the inn?" And Roger temporarily shuts Burke up by telling him, "Well, she's not staying at the inn, she's staying at my house."
He's pretty shocked by this, like, "Oh, shit, that wasn't what I thought she meant when she was being vague and mysterious at me about helping me."
Well,
Uh,
at this point, Carolyn enters and very amusingly says, "I do hope I'm interrupting something."
yeah, she's on one, and I love it. She's great.
She's great. Carolyn is often the MVP of this show. I
Absolutely.
am very fond of her. Anyway, Carolyn greets Sam politely, but then Burke sassily, like, "Hello, Burke." She announces that she's come to get Laura's bags from the inn, and Roger
Is just
questions
pleased.
her further to give a demonstration for Burke that he was telling the truth.
And it's
So
clearly
he
upsetting Burke, and
he's
he's
like,
just so
"What
pleased.
tell me why you were getting her bags." And she's like, "Well, to bring them to our house where she's staying."
Yeah.
And, Roger goes on pretending that he and Laura are back together, talking about all the plans they have for later that evening. Roger and Sam leave, and Burke sits down and sulks. So Carolyn performatively says loudly, "Why, thank you. Yes, I'd love to sit down." And she does so. And she continues an imaginary conversation with him until he finally responds and apologizes. And she flirts and also expresses her jealousy of Laura for all of Carolyn's emotional issues. I will say she is being very upfront with all of this. Like,
Yeah.
she's not just having fits about it. She tells first Roger and then Burke that I am jealous of Aunt Laura.
Yeah, I appreciate maybe it's growth on Carolyn's part, or she's working on not throwing fits. I know I sometimes have to work on not throwing fits, so that's good for
Elsewhere,
her.
Elsewhere, Sheriff George makes a phone call asking someone about a mysterious teletype from the Phoenix police.
Even though I know some things, this whole bit that we're about to go into took me by surprise. I was like, "Oh," and I think I even exclaimed, "Oh," which we'll get to in a moment, but
Yeah, quit talking about things
I
before they
know, I'm
happen.
sorry. I can't help it.
Talk about it at the appointed time.
I'm sorry, I get excited.
At the Evanses, Roger has driven Sam home,
Oh,
and they enter bickering like an old married couple. Roger assures Sam that Laura doesn't plan on getting involved in Manslaughter Club at all. She's just there for David and is going to leave right after she gets him. Roger is also mean to Sam about inviting him over to look at his paintings. Like, I don't want to look at
you're
your stupid paintings. Why?
well, and they're also talking about Burke and how, Roger is upset that Burke was there. Sam is like, "Well, I didn't know he would be there," and they're arguing about that, and Sam sort of caters to Roger, but in a very funny way, and he's like, "Well, Burke was clever, but" then he says, "But Roger topped him beautifully," which is funny because Roger is clearly the bottom in that relationship. We both had the
Indeed.
same joke that we wrote down, and we, like, drew straws.
Sam relates that his possessed hand unbidden painted a painting not in his usual style, and Rogel, Rogel, Ro-
Roger,
R-
Roger.
Roger doesn't care about any of this, so Sam dramatically whips the tarp covering the painting off, and it's Laura in flames, as we already knew, but now she has wings, and there is a David-sized blank spot at the
Yeah.
bottom right of the canvas, and
Roger's like, "That's my wife."
Roger freaks out, and Sam freaks out, and
"You drunk idiot."
they
Rah.
yell and paw at each other as Sam tries to stop Roger from fleeing. He fails and is left alone with his spooky painting.
Then he goes to the painting with something, and I think tries to cut it.
It's a knife. He
Yeah,
picks
okay, I
up a
couldn't
knife
tell.
that just was laying around
Yeah,
in the living
you
room,
know,
'cause why not?
why not? He can't, because his possessed fire painting hand won't let him, I guess, or he
I couldn't
second guesses it and then throws the knife, and
yeah,
we see a close up of scary mother in flames.
I couldn't tell if Laura was telepathically preventing him from slashing the painting,
I felt that that was what was happening, but
or if he just decided not to.
I think it was more the telepathy
Well,
because of the music.
but he throws the knife down in frustration, and we get a dramatic close up of painting Laura's face, which cuts to Burke lost in thought back at the Blue Whale. Carolyn is annoyed with Burke not being enthusiastic enough about spending time with her. He makes a brief, half hearted attempt at charming her, but then immediately turns the conversation back to Laura, and she is clearly pissed, but does tell him that no, Laura isn't staying in Uncle Roger's bedroom. She's at the cottage all alone.
Yeah, she's at Murder Shack and not in the house proper. George shows up at Collinwood at the door to tell Roger that they
He
were wired by Phoenix, the cops in Phoenix.
This is the teletype he was being mysterious
Yeah.
on the phone about earlier.
And they found a body in Phoenix, Arizona that was identified as the burned up Laura Collins. Dun,
End
dun,
credits.
dun.
Yes, dun dun dun. Episode 138. Victoria Winters reminds us that Roger just got some fucked up news. George apologizes for shocking Roger, but reiterates that the body found burnt in Phoenix was identified as Laura Collins. He tried to find her at the inn to clear this up, but they told George that she had checked in on the same day as the fire in Phoenix. The Phoenix police insist that the body is Laura Collins. Opening credits. Roger doesn't believe it. George explains that nobody visually ID'd the body because it was burned beyond recognition, but it was found in Laura's apartment, and everyone else at the apartment complex was accounted for except for Laura. So, process of elimination tells us that it must be her.
Right.
George insists that there's got to be a rational explanation. Roger says that this sounds an awful lot like a Phoenix problem. Like, why are they concerned about this?
Right.
But George says, yeah, sure, I guess it is. But I did tell him that I'd question Laura for them. So I'm going to need to do that. And
Roger tells him she's in Matthew's murder shack, and Roger is concerned about her fragile mental state and is like, I don't know that questioning you question my wife who has dirt on me about manslaughter club. There could be problems. And doesn't really want her to. George is less concerned about that and more concerned about weird dead bodies and is like insistent that he needs to speak to her.
but while
They,
trying to
oh, yeah. Go ahead.
encourage him to go easy on Laura on account of her recent incarceration in the mental hospital, he also gets a dig in because Roger really hates George. So he's like, I don't want you to go all harsh interrogation on her like you always do because you're mean.
Yeah.
Ev- but eventually they exit to head to the cottage and talk to her.
In the cottage, or Matthew's murder shack, as I'm reporting it to be.
And I understand why, but no one was murdered there.
But he's a murderer, so Matthew's murderer shack is harder to say.
He is a murderer, but all of his murdering and attempted murdering was done off-site. Don't shit where you eat and
Fair.
whatnot.
Well, Matthew's not so murder shack is where Laura is, and she is sitting in the fire again, practically like she likes to do. And George and Roger knock, and she's foggy because she's busy doing her
Fire magic.
yeah, her fire hypnosis, and, kinda shakes herself out of it and lets them in and is a little concerned and surprised that the cops are there,
But
as anyone would be.
they exchange pleasant greetings, and
Mm.
he says it's nice to see her again, and she's like, "Yeah, you too." But she agrees to answer his questions, and like folks like to do on this show, he teases it out a real long time and slowly explains the news from Phoenix. So first he confirms her address, and then he asks her when she was last there, and she says, "Oh, 8 or 9 days ago," and he wants to know her exact travel plans, and she gives her itinerary from getting to Phoenix to Collinsport, uh, clearly outlining that, "No, I was not in Phoenix when whatever you're about to tell me happened,
Yeah.
happened." And he asks if she left any belongings behind, and she's like, "Well, yeah,
My
because it
house.
was my fucking apartment, like, my
Yeah.
clothes and my other shit were there because I live there."
Right.
Uh, and he goes on to ask, "Well, did anybody else have a key?" And she says, "No." And finally, he announces that there has been a fire, and obviously she feigns surprise. He tells her that the only fatality was identified as, wait, Laura Collins, and she seems kind of unfazed by this and was like, "Well, what do you think about it? Like, clearly I'm standing right fucking here," you know?
Yeah.
And he says, "Oh, no, yeah, it clearly wasn't you, but we need to find out who it was. So, who might have been there? Did you have any friends that had keys or know of anybody that, like, service people that might have been in your apartment for any reason?" And she doesn't have any ideas, and then puts on her dreamy, gazing into the fire voice again, like she sounds when she's going, "David, David." And she asks intensely about the condition of the body, and the score gets spooky. George is satisfied, however, after he tells her, "Well, the body, it was burnt up, couldn't
Okay.
be identified." And that's all his questions, so George is satisfied and gets ready to leave and says to Roger that he'll meet him back at the main house, and he takes off. Laura doesn't seem all that bothered by any of this. Roger's like, "What the fuck, Laura?" And she's like, "I don't know, beats me."
Yeah. Like, that's weird.
Roger does ask her how this might affect her plans, since the point of the trip was to pick up David and take him back home with her, but now her home has burned
It's like,
down.
"Oh, I have another place I'm going to take him,"
Sh
ominously.
Yeah, she says, "Oh, I've made a commitment to another place, and so this isn't any big deal." And Roger says he has to go back and deal with George, but he's going to be coming back to talk about Burke.
She's like, "Great.
And she is annoyed, but is like, "Sure,
Fine,
fucking fine,
whatever."
Roger.
Yeah.
Whatever
Get
you
the fuck
want."
out of my murder shack.
On the front steps of Collinwood, Burke has helped Carolyn carry Laura's luggage, and they flirt and then kiss, and
And it's gross
he
because he's using her, and it's disgusting, and even in the '60s, that's gross, and I was fine with it when it was flirting, but he's all passionately kissing her, and I think it's fucked up, but
it
she sure is
is,
happy about it.
but also,
Say,
uh, the blow is softened by how shitty she was to Joe and kept stringing him along while actively pursuing another
screw goes
dude.
around, comes
So,
around, but also, like, just dudes being gross, and then Bert gets grosser later, and I just ew,
well,
I'm mad.
yeah, Becca is soured on Burke now for
Yeah.
good reason, but we'll get to that in a
It's fine, I
minute.
have a new TV boyfriend.
Honey, you're not his type.
Well,
Well, a little bit. I guess he occasionally bones a lady, but that's just to piss his boyfriend off.
Well,
So
that's hot to me, like, the whole situation.
Are you a closet cuck,
No, I'm
Rebecca?
not. I would like to well, let's not
We're
talk
not gonna
about
talk
that.
about that.
No, we're not.
We must stay focused. Anyway, Burke and Carolyn are making out on the front porch, and then she giggles and invites him inside, and they flirt some more. In the drawing room, Burke warms himself by the fire, and at his invitation, Carolyn cozies up to his side to resume the making out, and she is overcome with happiness. But then, in passing, Burke offers to take the suitcase to Laura at the
Which she
cottage,
made.
and she is pissed.
I was so tickled that phase coulda cut things. I don't
Yeah.
know what, but
On the front porch again, George and Roger are saying their good nights, and then they start making out. Just kidding. George leaves for real, and Roger enters the foyer and regards Laura's suitcase. In the drawing room, the flirting has resumed, and again, with the emotional breakthroughs, she again verbalizes her jealousy of Laura, but Burke insists that his interest in Laura is only business, and Carolyn says, "You can't fool me," to which Burke says, "Yes, I can," which is like, ouch, because
yeah, it was
they're
pretty
play fighting, but also he's telling the truth.
yeah, it was pretty good, like, yeah,
Uh, we were both tickled by
yeah,
that, but he, of course, successfully charms her out of being mad at him, and they start to canoodle again, and he's stroking her hands as Roger interrupts them and yells at Carolyn about having Burke in the house, and Burke and Roger yell at each other. Roger demands that Carolyn show Burke out, but he begins to leave on his own, and she runs after him to the foyer.
yeah, and he tells her he'll bone her someday and kisses her again and takes the suitcase out, and Carolyn pulls a face.
And no, she calls him out on it. She's
Oh,
like, "You
yeah.
sure are eager to take her that fucking suitcase, aren't you?" And he's like, "Yep,
Yup.
sure am." And then he goes.
Maybe they are good for each other. Like, they're both manipulative, but they are having some honest conversations, so good for them.
Anyway, there's a dramatic close-up of the fire in the drawing room, which no, this isn't when it does the crossfade. Dramatic fire close-up zooms out to reveal Laura gazing eerily into the flames.
Yeah, Mother's having her fire time again.
And yeah, we've got the spooky music that plays when
There's
she does her fire
another knock
gazing.
at the door, but she's busy hypnotizing people,
Her eyes are all
whatever
big.
fire magic she's doing, and
Well, her eyes are all big, they're not as big as they're going to get.
oh, no, they're not.
But again, she doesn't respond to the knocks at the door until Burke calls out for her, and she's surprised to see him and thanks him for bringing the bag.
Leaves the door open, but he puts the suitcase down, and she's just standing there with the door open, and he's like, "You're letting cold air in," and she's like, "Fuck,
She's resigned to like, "Okay, I guess
fine."
you're gonna hang out." They flirt a little bit, and then he starts bragging about how rich he is, and
She's
she
like,
asks,
"Good for
"Why?
you."
Why are you telling me this?" And he becomes menacing and says he just wants her to know that he won't be made a fool of. In the foyer,
Speaking of fools.
Roger confirms with Carolyn that Burke has left, and she says, yes, he has. He's just taking Laura that suitcase on his way out, and then he'll be gone. And Roger gets real upset and makes quite a face, and his voice gets all monotone and creepy, and he's like, I wish you hadn't done that. Good night.
Yeah.
He paces the drawing room and then takes a shotgun down from the wall.
Yep. Back at the murder shack, Mother is telling Burke that he shouldn't be there, and if Roger were to guess that he was there, she'd never get David, and she can't help him until that's secured because she's playing all the sides. And he talks about how he used to want to be vengeful to her, but now he doesn't know. But he says that she owes him and then tries to kiss her, but she is resistant and not into it and saying no, and
Uh,
he's pushy
he's
and it
trying to threaten her into boning him.
grabs her face and it's rapey and off-putting. But luckily, Roger comes in with the shotgun pointed at everybody and the
And
credits.
yeah, Burke was starting to forcefully kiss her neck and grab
Yeah.
her. The whole time she's like, "No, stop, please
No,
don't,
please
please
stop.
no."
No. Yeah. It was upsetting. Fuck Burke. He's off my list now.
Episode 139. Victoria Winters reminds us that it's nighttime, but there's something going down at the cottage.
It's dark at Collinwood, but there are lights on at Matthew's Burger Shack. I guess I didn't type murder right. We see Burke being forceful and terrible, and Laura is recoiling from his touch and saying, please don't, over and over again. But then they both see Roger, and Laura calls out Roger, and Roger is standing there with the shotgun, is like, get away from my wife. And
Burke
Roger
is
says,
incredulous about it, like, and being real glib and like he's doing nothing wrong, and why is Roger so upset?
yeah,
But Roger is furious and, as you say, warns Burke to stay away from his wife or he will kill
yeah, he's
him.
like,
I
I
would
will kill
like
you
it.
dead, happily.
Opening credits.
Everyone stands around and stares at each other for a beat.
Burke taunts Roger, saying, "Oh, you won't shoot me." And Laura is trying to talk Roger down, like, "No, it's cool, Roger. It's fine that he was about to rape me. I'm
It's
not mad about it.
it's
Please
the
put down the
60s.
gun." And Burke calls his bluff and starts to walk towards Roger, who warns him to stop, but Burke advances, and Roger says, "If you take another step, I'm going to shoot you." And Burke advances again, walking into the gun, but then at the last minute grabs it and points it at the ceiling as Roger fires. So the gun does go off. Roger says now he's really gone and done it, and he will kill Burke for this.
Burke leaves, taking Roger's rifle.
Laura's still trying to calm things down and is like, "Burke, you probably ought to go." So Roger repeats his threat that he's going to kill him if it's the last thing he does, and Burke still isn't impressed. So on his way out, he's like, "Okay, good night, Laura, bye."
And takes his rifle with him, or Roger's rifle with him.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I thought it was weird. He was like, I've taken the gun and I'm leaving.
After Burke is gone, Roger is shouting at Laura, interrogating her, and he admonishes her for playing around with Burke, slut shaming her for being assaulted, which
Yep,
is gross.
it's all gross. It's the 60s.
They argue
It's
loudly.
still gross.
Yeah. That's the whole joke of that
Yeah,
bit is
yeah.
like,
I
yeah, that bad shit happened in the '60s, but sure doesn't happen anymore.
right.
And they argue loudly about the manslaughtering. And Roger says aloud that Laura perjured herself during the trial, and she acknowledges it. So again, we get Roger saying pretty much, "Yes, I
Yes,
did
I
the
manslaughter.
manslaughtering." Burke is right.
Yep. And he's talking to her about loyalty and says the best day of his life will be when she takes his son and goes, but then Mike drops with, if David really is my son, and walks out like a boss. And then Laura is shocked.
She peers out the window, and at first one thinks she's just watching Roger go and, make sure Burke is gone.
No,
Like,
she's gone to fire hypnosis her bastard baby.
yes, theremin sting, and she telepathically bothers David in his sleep.
Head bastard baby is tossing and turning, and mother calls, David, David, at him some more.
The next morning, Vicky enters David's room to wake him up and informs him that he has slept in until 10:30.
But it's funny because she comes in and is all, David, David. So it's like, David, David. David, 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 David. It was funny to me.
He tells Vicky that he didn't sleep well. He kept waking up on account of his bad mother-mother dreams, and Vicky tries to comfort him. Roger enters in a cardigan with a shirt open at the collar, revealing an ascot, which I was like, spot on, Roger. That's a
Right.
way to be a storybook rich dude.
Yeah.
But he's in a real good mood and cheerily tells David that he's taking him to the cottage to see his mother. And David is resistant and says that she is scary. Roger insists that he's going to go, i- and if he refuses, Roger is going to beat him. And David cowers behind Vicky, begging for protection. And he tells Roger that he isn't going near Mother.
Yeah, and he storms out, and Vicky tells Roger that spanking is abuse and psychologically scarring, and that that leads to what's wrong with everybody in the world, and also it doesn't work, and Roger says it's the '60s. Roger doesn't understand why David doesn't want to see his fiery mother, and Vicky says he's still having mother fire dreams. Roger is encouraging Vicky to get David to see mother, and Vicky wants to know why the cops were at the house. He does tell Vicky about the mother body in Phoenix.
Vicky is offering some professional advice to Roger. She tells Roger that he ought to try another approach because what she thinks is going on is that David really does want to see Mother, but since she's already left him once, he's afraid that she might reject him, and that's why he's being a little weirdo. And Vicky offers to help and, facilitate the reunion, and Roger is appreciative.
Down at Matthew's Murder Shack and Fire Hypnosis Emporium, Vicky comes down to visit with Laura. She says, "I see you made a fire." And Laura's like, "Yes, I love making fires. They're so cozy." And Laura wants to know everything to know about David, and she's excited to learn about him from Vicky.
And Vicky's trying to be reassuring, and is like, I know this sucks, but David will come around. It's going to be fine.
Yeah, and he's talked about how he misses his mother and loves his mother in the past. And Vicky tells him that Vicky tells her that David is a smart, sensitive boy whose favorite color is blue, and that's Laura's too. She omits maybe that he is a spooky child.
But is generally singing his praises, and Laura raises her voice in pitch by about a fourth and creepily asks Vicky to, "Hey, could you maybe obtain a lock of David's hair?"
And Vicky's like, "Girl, what?" She tells her that she's had a lock of his baby hair that she would use to ground her to reality when she was in the rehab, and
"Pussy,
she's
we
kinda
got your
like,
number. That's witch business."
"Okay, right, yeah, like, you ask for hair, we know what you're doing."
Yeah, Laura brings up her time at the sanitarium, and I can't get it straight because half of these people call it a sanitarium and half of them say sanatorium, and I don't know what the difference is. I thought one was for sick people and one was for crazy people, but what is the difference? Let's look it up now.
I imagine that hysterical women, be it psychological problems or alcohol, all got dumped in the same place and electrocuted to near bits or lobotomized at the sanatorium. I bet it's interchangeable, kind of like sheriff and constable.
Both sanatorium and sanitarium refer to facilities for long-term illness, particularly for convalescence, e.g., tuberculosis, or mental health. While often used interchangeably, sanatorium historically focuses on treating disease, while sanitarium often refers to health resorts or places for resting. So I think Yes, sanitarium is psychiatric facility. Sanatorium is chronic diseases,
Oh, okay.
particularly tuberculosis. So it's been incorrect on the show when they call it a sanatorium.
Gotcha.
So henceforth, sanitarium. Anyway, Laura brings up her time at the sanitarium, and this makes Vicky uncomfortable. And Laura tells her, "Oh, you don't need to be embarrassed about it. I'm perfectly fine talking about it." And she explains that the idea of David is what kept her going in the sanitarium. Vicky tries to change the subject and asks Laura if she wants to just come up to the house with her to see him, but Laura doesn't want to frighten him any further. So Vicky hatches a scheme for she and David to completely by accident, coincidentally run into Laura on their afternoon walk. They arrange a time and place.
Vicky suggests the greenhouse, but Laura wants to go to the spooky route and
What
meet
about scary
Widow's
ghost
Hill.
cliff
Yeah.
instead?
She's like, "I took him there when he was a baby and showed him ghost things and took his hair." Vicky's like, "Weird, but okay, we will meet then."
And Laura is really appreciative and seems very pleased with Vicky. Vicky is gone, and Laura returns to the fire, and I worry about Diana Malay, who portrays Laura, always hanging out in these billowy fucking costumes with these gauzy long sleeves right up in the fire. It is scary.
Fire, mother is gonna catch fire.
Get some Wizard of Oz type
Yeah,
onset injuries
I
from
imagine.
poor planning. But, I guess that didn't happen or we would know
Yeah,
about
we'd
it,
have heard
but
about it.
it is distracting, like, it makes me focus on the production rather than the story.
Vicky and David are walking up to Widow's Hill, and David's annoyed and is like, "Why did you bring me up here?" And Vicky says to look at the ocean, and David would rather talk about the widows and all the people dying up there. Vicky would rather not. David gets close to the cliff and is being a brat because he doesn't want to be up there. So he's like, "Ooh, look at the waves and look how close I am to the cliff." And Vicky is freaked out and calls him back. David calls her a scaredy cat and he sees some seagulls and then is just
Then
a
David
cute
is cute
kid.
for the second time ever in the series, and he's admiring the seagulls and wonders if he could catch one to keep as a pet.
Like, me too. Let's have seagull friends, David.
Also, he's bored and wants to go home, but Vicky is clearly stalling him like, "Oh, look,
That ship.
over there."
Yeah, she points out a ship, and then that distracts him enough to talk about traveling away to faraway places like Madagascar. And
He doesn't say that. He expresses a desire to travel the world when he grows up, and Laura emerges from the bushes where she's often hiding, like a bird.
yeah,
Asks him if he's going to go to Madagascar, but she says Madagascar.
Madagascar.
And she's making conversation and telling him all about all the cool places she's been to that she can tell him about. And he's a little scared at first, but then when she's like, "I can tell you all about cool, distant, far off lands," he
He's a
gets
little
kind of
intrigued.
engaged, like, "Yeah,
Yeah.
I would maybe like that."
But then she walks closer to him, and he immediately backs up toward the cliff.
Well, she beckons him to come to her, and that freaks him the fuck out, and he backs up to the cliff, and then she leans a little too heavy on it and is like, come to me." Uh,
David.
uh, this freaks him out worse, and he slips and almost falls off of the cliff and
And
is left clinging to a rock.
we are left with a literal cliffhanger and credits.
That didn't even occur to me, and I feel very dumb now because it's so obvious, but
It was an obvious joke. It's
good
not.
job. Uh, Episode 140. My God, we've made it already. Even though we've been going on almost 2 hours, we were like, "We're not gonna do
Oh,
the
yeah.
chatty bits anymore."
Yeah, well,
And then we chatted for 30 minutes
well,
before
good.
we even got into the show. Episode 140, Victoria Winters, reminds us that David is about to fall off the cliff because he's scared of Mother Mother. To underscore the point, the last scene of the previous episode plays again before the opening credits. Now, it seemed to me that Mother Mother and Vicky let him dangle from the cliff a lot longer than a parent or a child care professional would. Like,
Yeah,
he's just hanging from this rock and they're standing aside for at least 30 seconds, but Vicky does eventually rescue him, and he clings to her and sobs.
I say, "Oh, Miss Winters."
She asks why on earth he did that, and he doesn't have an explanation. He was just very afraid of Mother Mother, and
Says there's something about Mother's eyes, and
we see her
meanwhile
we see Laura crying in the background. Vicky tries to talk him into calming the fuck down and guilts him into it.
yeah,
She makes him feel bad that he made his mother cry.
because she thinks he doesn't love her, and David says, "Well, there's just something he can't explain," but Vicky says that it's the dream, and Mother isn't a dream Mother, she's a real Mother,
And she's right over there
and
crying
you should
because of
go
you.
to her because you don't love her and you should love her.
And her manipulative pep talk works.
Yeah, he listens for once and goes over to his mother and says, "Why won't she look at him?" And she says she doesn't want him to see her crying. He asks
He
if
apologizes
yeah, he
first.
does. And he asks if she really came to see him and came all that way, and she says yes, and she asks why he ran away from her. He says it was something about her eyes, and she looks at him and asks
What
if he
about
still
now
yeah,
that I've turned my telepathy
turned
off?
my spooky fire magic off, and he says, no, he doesn't have the same feeling, and she says that they've got to get used to each other again, and he asks if she likes him, and
And no one's ever liked him before, so this is important.
yeah, she says yes, and that she likes him and loves him more than anything, and he asks if she would leave again, and she says no, and that they will be together
Well,
forever
she isn't
and
that
ever. Okay,
presumptuous. She says, "No, not if you don't want me to."
okay,
So he gets to be complicit, I guess.
sure.
And then she promises to stay with him forever, and he takes her hand, and she stands up, and they embrace, and suddenly everything's fine.
Yeah,
They're both
smiling and happy.
all smiles now, and we don't know if this is genuine or if she has just finally effectively magically brainwashed him. In the drawing room, Roger joins Liz, and they're talking about the newspaper. He's like, "Anything interesting in the newspaper?" And she says, "No, but you can have it if you want to." And he tells Liz about the body in Phoenix while making racist newspaper jokes. He's like, "Well, I would be more interested in the Phoenix Tom Tom or whatever they
Yeah,
call it out there." And Liz is shocked, not by the racism, but by the announcement of the burned body. Liz chastises Roger for wanting to get rid of David so quickly, and so he changes the subject by tattling on Carolyn for I almost called her Karen. He Oh, I wanna talk about the book again.
well, we'll get there.
He changes the subject by tattling on Carolyn for bringing Burke to the house, and further explains that Burke was only using Carolyn to get to Laura.
Yeah, and he was just all over both of them all night, and it doesn't really go into detail about the happenings of last night.
And they are interrupted by Laura and David entering, suddenly thick as thieves, to which they're both kind of like, the fuck? But David enthusiastically invites Laura upstairs to see his room, and Liz makes a face like she's going to vomit. But she praises Vicky's efforts, like, "Oh, good job, Vicky."
Yeah.
And Vicky explains her scheme and how she tricked them into hanging out, but also about how David nearly died in the process.
But Roger's pleased that it all worked out, and
Vicky brings up that she was afraid that David was going to say that Laura isn't his real mother again, like he did that first night. And Liz acts like this is the first she's hearing of this, but I'm confused because wasn't Liz there when
no,
that
she
happened?
wasn't because Roger told Vicky not to mention it again, and Roger looks pissed that Vicky brought it up when he told her not to, and Liz is puzzled and concerned and says David is sensitive and intuitive.
I see. Well, over dinner, it's Liz and Roger and Vicky and David and
Yeah,
Laura.
spooky Waltons, everybody's sitting around the table having supper, and
Roger points out that Laura hasn't eaten anything. You might say she's eating like a bird.
mm,
I don't know if I
I think
even
we're
need to
close
cut it at
enough.
this
Like,
point.
yeah, I think we all know what's happening with
Well, if
your
not, we're
mother.
about to like
Yeah,
2 scenes from now.
exactly.
The group stands up to exit, but Liz asks Laura to hang back so they
Mhm.
can speak privately. And it one thinks that it's going to be more serious than it is, but she brings up the whole, "Well, David said you aren't his real mother." And Laura's just like, "Well, I don't know why he'd say that." She also tells Laura about his habit of hanging out with ghosts, and as if Liz is like, "Are you sure you want that kid? He's creepy."
Yeah.
Laura brushes all of this off, and then Liz gets up in her face real close and brings up Burke and warns her about getting close to Burke because that would get in the way of her getting David back. And
Essentially blackmailing her or being like,
the same way
yeah,
Roger was.
yeah.
In the drawing room, Roger and Vicky are arguing about her telling Liz about the whole "you're not my real mom" stuff. Roger says he's got a solution for all of that just in case it should crop up again. Anyway, Roger has a plan to sort all that out, and he produces a book from a cabinet and calls David to the sofa to sit with him.
He wants to put away the "that's not my mother" business once and for all, and shows him the photo album, and he asks if that's his mother, and he
Yeah,
says, "Yes," and then he says, "Is that your mother?" And he says, "Yes," and it's kind of a goofy little
it is
thing he's
funny.
doing.
He's basically like, "If that's not your real mom, then who's this bitch? That's the same lady. See?"
Yeah, it's weird.
uh,
Roger's
Roger tells David that he needs to stop saying that Laura isn't his real mom, and after looking at a few of these old photos, David agrees that yes, that lady in the picture and standing out in the foyer eavesdropping is my real mom. And we see Laura looking on, eavesdropping from the foyer, looking smug about it, and she enters triumphantly and asks David to show her the photos. Roger excuses himself and asks Vicky to join. He closes the doors behind them and takes one last satisfied look in on them. And then in the foyer tells Vicky he just wanted to give them some time alone.
he flatters her and says that her governor's powers are on fleek and worked and good job, and
No one ever mentions the fact that David almost fell
yeah.
off the damn cliff
Yeah, like,
again.
why no one's like, "Oh, he almost died, but it's fine." By the fire, Mother and David are happily laughing and looking at photos. She says that he will be tall, and he says, "Will I be taller than my father?" And she says, "Yes." And he's like, "Will I be taller than Burke?" And she pulls a awkward face and it just says, Possibly in a bit of a restrained voice.
She seems taken aback by this question, but is
Sure.
like, maybe."
Maybe.
And he asks about where she came from, and neither he nor she say Phoenix, but he asks about where she came from, and she speaks highly of it and then fantastically of it,
It
and
tells about the air smelling like cinnamon and flowers or things and
starts to sound like she might not be talking about Phoenix.
beautiful palm trees and
Giant palm trees, perfect for the phoenix to nest in.
yes, and she tells him about them, and he wishes he could see she tells him about the phoenix birds and how beautiful they are, and he wishes he could see one, and she says to imagine it with his mind, and she tells him how the phoenix lives for hundreds of years and then burns itself up and
And
rises from the ashes anew.
during this story, we cut to Vicky eavesdropping in the foyer like she's scolded David so many times for doing. And
Sure.
Laura is going on and on about the magic bird.
She says that the phoenix bird goes to the highest palm tree and then it wakes up and sings as the sun sets fire to the nest.
We cut to Vicky in the foyer making a "what the fuck"
Right.
face at like, huh?
What? And she says the phoenix fans the fire and is burnt up with all of its fiery feathers. And she tells how the phoenix is all burnt up and reborn and
She's getting, like, more and more
worked
giddy
up
as this
and like
goes on
wide-eyed
and
and
smiling real
smiling.
big.
Yeah. She says that once that has happened, it can spend the next hundreds of years in paradise. And then a wind, in quotation marks, blows open the door where Vicky had been eavesdropping. And
End
so in
credits.
credits. Yeah. That was a long one. So
This was a fun week.
mother, bird lady. Pretty
That
cool.
yes, I have been calling her bird lady this whole
Yeah.
time, and we have often slipped up and said it, and I've had to cut it out, and now it's finally happened, and we can start calling her bird lady, though I've grown kind of attached to mother.
I do love mother.
Anyway, yep, bird lady, it's happening. I love it. She's great.
She's
She
pretty
makes the
great.
best
I
faces.
love her faces. I might rewatch just so I can look more intently, because oftentimes when I'm taking notes, I don't look at it.
That's the problem is when you're doing that, you
Yeah,
can't actually watch it.
yeah,
So I think I have an advantage here, which is why I take better notes than you, because I've watched all these already without
sure.
taking notes.
That's fair. Well, you win some, you lose some. I really like where it's going, except I'm mad that Burke is being disgusting.
It is disappointing that Burke is rapey, but also in 1966, every man was rapey and it was perfectly legal to rape your wife. And
I wouldn't say that every man was rapey. I think that it was acceptable to be rapey, and it's gross and terrible. Uh,
you're right. I mean, I wouldn't say every man is rapey, but rape is not
it was
regarded as a serious
no, it was
offense.
socially normalized, and it's good that it is less socially normalized, although it is still socially normalized. Basically, it's a bummer because it just reminds me of how horrible everything is, and the point is to be going away to the paradise, the fire, the birds, and things. Mother, David. I do, feel like Burke has been an enjoyable character. And I liked how he was manipulating Carolyn with flirtation. It was shitty, but it stringing her along a little bit.
But once it got
But
physical, that was too much
it's
for
too
you.
much for me. Yeah, like psychologically toying with someone's affections is shitty and awful, but it is also kind of like being a spy. And so it's kind of fun and sexy too. Like tricking people, not putting out, but Yeah, just grabbing on ladies and making out willy-nilly after he was all, like, trying to be like, "Oh, but I care about Vicky," and now it's like, "Yeah, you're just a fucking gross dude. Fuck you, Burke. Fuck Burke. He's just as shitty as Sam in my eyes now." I'm like, "Fucking Sam and Burke."
Follow us on Instagram at Ghosts Want You Dead. If you would like to hear these bonus episodes we teased earlier in this episode, like the one where we chit chat about various topics, or the one that is book club, or the third nebulous, undetermined one that we're not sure about yet because no one has subscribed to that tier yet. And so we haven't had to plan for it.
Figure it out if you get there, though. If you subscribe, you can even suggest a topic.
Yeah.
We'll we'll do it for money.
Anyway, if you're interested in any of those, patreon.com/ghosts want you dead. Ghosts want your money. Give us your money, please and thank you. This program is brought to you by Amy and Austin and Jacob.
Thanks, guys. We appreciate it.
Be like them. Join the Patreon.
Join us.
The bonus episodes are fun.
Yep, and there might be surprises.
Surprises?
Surprises.
Is this something I know about? We are still running an introductory offer where if between whenever I first said this and May 1st, if you become a paying member of the Patreon, we will send you in the real live USPS mail some things that will remain a mystery.
Mystery thing.
Not for much longer. I have obtained the supplies to mail these things out to you. So, Amy and Austin and Jacob, make sure your mailing addresses are current on Patreon because I will be making trips to the post office soon.
Well,
It-
yeah. Good night and good.
yeah, we're done with this. I'm hanging up now.
You
See,
did
I
that
like
last
I
week.
know. That's why. Okay.